We're here today with a visitor from Erie who is bringing glad tidings about opportunities for artists that are available to people throughout Pennsylvania and especially in this area.
Yeah, my name is Melinda Meyer. I am a program director for Erie Arts and Culture. And Erie Arts and Culture is the Arts Council of Erie, but through a couple of different partnerships with the Pennsylvania Council of the Arts, we're able to serve a region that's much broader than just Erie County. We're able to go out and actually serve a multi-county region in northwestern Pennsylvania. So, and that's what we're going to talk about today, right? We're going to talk about a couple of different partnership opportunities or partnership programs that allow Erie Arts and Culture to kind of funnel resources to arts organizations and arts projects in Crawford County.
That's great. How do people formally get connected with Erie Arts and Culture so that we know what's going on and what the opportunities might be?
Yeah, there's a couple of different ways. So Erie Arts and Culture, as an arts council, we are a membership-based organization, so that's one way to get connected to Erie Arts and Culture. But sometimes a membership may not be the route that is chosen. And that's okay. There are lots of different other ways to get connected to Erie Arts and Culture. So, as we were talking about just a few minutes ago, Erie Arts and Culture, we do have, we like to think of it as a robust website. On our website, we have a calendar of events. And so arts organizations, community groups that want to get connected to that resource can simply go on the website, which is erieartsandculture.org. Create an account and begin adding community events to that online calendar. We use that online calendar to then pull content and try to promote it through other avenues. Another way to stay connected to the different programs, whether they be funding programs or other, just in general, other opportunities through Erie Arts and Culture. We do have also a regular e-news, and on our homepage of our website at the very bottom, people can click, they can add their email address and their name to our contact list and start receiving weekly e-newsletters. And that's a really great basic way to stay connected to Erie Arts and Culture and the resources that we have to share.
What kind of organizations do you work with is it a 5-county area that you serve?
Yeah, so Erie Arts and Culture, as the Arts Council of Erie, there are certain programs that we administer that are just for Erie County. But that's not what we're here to talk about, right? We're here to talk about the programs that actually reach beyond Erie County's borders.
Yeah.
So Erie Arts and Culture is a partner with the Pennsylvania Council on the Arts with two different programs. One is the Pennsylvania Partners on the Arts, which is a re-grant program. So more than a decade ago, the Pennsylvania Council of the Arts decided that in order to spread as many dollars for the arts across the state and impact as many Pennsylvanians as possible, the way to do that would be to create formal partnerships with arts agencies across the state. So there are 13 arts agencies across the state of Pennsylvania that are formal partners with the Pennsylvania Council of the Arts through the Pennsylvania Partners in the Arts. And that's a lot of P's, that's a lot of Pennsylvanias, that's a lot of partnerships. But we abbreviate that program to PPA. So Erie Arts and Culture is one of 13 PPA partners. We administer a re-grant program in a 5-county region. Our 5-county region includes Crawford, Erie, Mercer, Venango, and Warren counties. Regranting, what this means is we actually receive funding from the Pennsylvania Council of the Arts once a year. These are dollars our legislators have actually set aside for arts grants. And we receive this check, and then we use those funds to administer two different grant programs. One is called the PPA program stream. This is an invitation-only, non-competitive grant program. So we won't spend too much time talking about that. Mm-hmm. The one that we really like to talk to people about is the PPA project stream grant program. Erie Arts and Culture receives a little over $34,000 to re-grant out to eligible individual artists, as well as arts organizations that have annual budgets $200,000 or less, or non-arts organizations that have arts programs where the program budget is less than $200,000 a year. And just to give you an example of some of the non-arts organizations that have applied for funding, we have one example is Stairways Behavioral Health. Stairways Behavioral Health, it's based in Erie, but their budget is a multi-million-dollar budget, but their arts program budget is under $200,000, and so they started applying for this funding probably 5 or 6 years ago for arts programming that they use to serve the clients that they serve. So that's really the grant program that we're going to probably spend the most time talking about. The other partnership is the Arts and Education Partnership. So in addition to being a PPA partner with the Pennsylvania Council of the Arts, Erie Arts and Culture is also an AIE partner with the Pennsylvania Council of the Arts. AIE, of course, is Arts and Education. So as an Arts and Education partner with the state, we again receive funding through the Pennsylvania Council of the Arts to support or to fund the placement of teaching artists in either schools or community organizations. Using a residency model. So those are the two programs that we actually receive funding through the Pennsylvania Council of the Arts that serve Crawford County. That's a lot of information all at once.
That's fabulous. So. Yeah. I just have one quick question. Yeah. The part of the program that you aren't talking about too much because that's invitation, mm-hmm. How would one go about getting onto the invitation list for that?
Okay, so again, if we look at the Pennsylvania Partners of the Arts grant program, it has there are two different streams of funding. Mm-hmm. Project stream, which is for projects only, mm-hmm. and program stream, which supports programs. So program stream is the one that's invitation only, non-competitive, right. And the way to get into that grant program is to have a track record in project stream. So and program stream is open to organizations only. So unfortunately, individual artists cannot transition from project stream to program stream, but organizations can. So organizations, they start off by applying for project stream funding, and if they have a 3 to 4 year track record, and what that means is they've applied for funding for project stream, they've been awarded funding for project stream, and they've done all of their paperwork requirements, they've fulfilled those paperwork requirements, then they can be invited to transition from project stream into program stream. And actually there are several organizations within Crawford County that receive this funding. So some of the organizations in Crawford County that are in that program stream pool of funding, it includes the Meadville Council of the Arts. It includes Second Saturday Community Markets. It includes the Titusville Council of the Arts. And I am probably going to forget someone, but those are 3 examples that come to mind very, very quickly as program stream grantees from Crawford County.
Great. Now, there's an opportunity coming up very quickly. This is now the 9th of June.
Yeah.
For getting involved in all of this. So what do people have to do to get their toes in the water, so to speak?
Yeah, Project Stream is a great place for, again, individual artists and the small arts organizations to start. Program Stream funding, those grants are available to, the applications are available usually at the end of April or early May, and the deadline to apply is always in June. So let's start talking about Project Stream grants. So Project Stream grants, they are up to $2,500. And again, what makes this program so unique is that individual artists can apply. There are very few opportunities statewide where individual artists can apply for any type of grant funding. And, when we're talking about artists, we're talking about like big picture art, right? So we're defining artists as poets, painters, muralists, musicians, dancers. So, when we say artists can apply, again, we're defining artists in the broadest sense. So even videographers and filmmakers can apply, can come in as artists. And again, the small arts organizations that have the budgets under $200,000, or the non-arts organizations that have the program budgets under $200,000 can come in, and community groups that do not have the official designation as nonprofits. If they have an organization that is willing to serve as a fiscal agent for them, they too can come in and request funding. So these grants will fund arts projects. That's why it's called PPA Project Stream. And yes, so I'm forgetting not just nonprofits, right? So yes, municipalities, local governments can come in and seek funding through Project Stream. And we've actually had a number of municipalities seek funds at least, over the last 4 or 5 years, which is the history that I can remember. We've had the city of Sharon apply for funding and receive funding for a brown bag concert series that they have in one of their downtown parks. We've had Grove City. Grove City has applied for funding. They did artist-designed bike racks. So lots of different types of projects that municipalities want to get done. The key is really artists are involved. So in any of the applications that come in, we really want to see that artists are involved. So we can walk through maybe what you can apply for funding for, what you can use these dollars for, and what you can't.
Sounds good. And as far as getting copies of the guidelines or more information, what would people do if they wanted to, if they think, okay, I want to give that a shot?
So information on the Pennsylvania Partners in the Arts grant program is available through Erie Arts and Culture's website. It is erieartsandculture.org. And at the very top of the website, because we know that people are going to go to the website now. Uh-huh. When they go to the website, there's a tab that is labeled Programs and Resources, and when you hover the arrow over Programs and Resources, a giant menu pops up. and they're going to want to find Pennsylvania Partners in the Arts. And they click on that, and they can find information on the PPA grant program. There is a link they can find to download the full guidelines for, well, again, right now Project Stream is the grant cycle that's open. So they can go and they can click on the link and download a PDF of the guidelines for Project Stream. They can also find a link to a Prezi presentation that was created actually by the Pennsylvania Council of the Arts staff. And the Prezi is just a different way to work through the guidelines. The Prezi, which has audio, will walk you through the grant program, how to apply, what you can use the money for, and will encourage you to reach out to the partners across the state. So anyone interested in this grant program really should reach out to Erie Arts and Culture. I'm the program director that oversees the PPA grant program, and I'm more than happy to answer questions and really talk to people through talk to people about their proposed projects and walk them through the online grant process, because the Project Stream application is an online application, and it's available through ppa.egrant.net. That's the URL. There are no W's. It is simply ppa.egrant.net. And just like most websites nowadays, when people get onto that website, if they want to create an application, they need to create an account. And once they've done that, then they can open up an application. And it's very simple. The way the website is built, you can start an application today, save your work, and come back 2 weeks from now and edit your application and save it again and until you're ready to click submit. So
Wonderful. How do they contact you?
My contact information is both available on the website and in the guidelines. My email address is melinda@erieartsandculture.org. And the telephone number for Erie Arts and Culture is 814-452-3427. My extension is 102.
Great.
That's how people can get a hold of us.
Now tell us about the possibilities.
Okay, so this grant program, again, or the Project Stream grant program, is intended to fund projects. So we've had a lot of different types of proposals come through the Project Stream cycle. Organizations or individual artists can seek funding for festivals, for mural work, for public concerts, for free classes. The possibilities are very broad. So what we do ask through the application, though, is that the applicant really know what they want to do. They need to be able to define their project in the application narrative. So we really want to know who's involved in your project, what do you plan on doing, when are you going to be doing this, how are you going to be doing this, and why are you doing this? What are the goals and or objectives for your program? And as I said, the grant program, we really want to see artists involved in your project, regardless of whether it's a project that's being proposed by an organization or a community group. So the guidelines, if we just kind of quickly go through the guidelines, one of the questions that people always ask about are match requirements. Is there a cash match requirement for Project Stream grants? And the answer is yes and no. So for applicants who are receiving funding, in their first or second year, no match requirement. There isn't a match requirement. So first-time applicants, do not need to come in with a proposed budget that includes other sources of income for the project. However, if an entity has received this grant funding at least two different times, and they're coming in for a third time, that's when the match requirement kicks in, and it is a 1-to-1 cash match requirement. That's really unusual too, and the reason that is done is so that these projects can be built up. We see a lot of proposed projects that are new ideas. They're new projects that people just want to start kind of building. And so this grant actually allows you to do that without needing to find other sources of funding. Again, though, you can only request up to $2,500. So if your project budget is greater than $2,500, obviously you need to find more sources of funding somewhere. But that no cash required match is really unique. Again, another unique part of this program. Now, the applications that we receive, they are reviewed by a citizens panel. They are reviewed by people we recruit from the five county region that we serve to review these grant applications. So they are folks who are familiar with the regional arts community. They themselves might be artists. They may be administrators with arts organizations. They may be arts patrons. They may be grant writers. So we build our panel so that there's a lot of different expertise, and they are the ones who are reviewing these applications and helping to make determinations on which applications are qualifying for funding. So the application review criteria actually overlaps the narrative. So when someone begins to look at this application, they're going to find that it's a relatively simple application. It has a one-page budget worksheet, and again, it's all online. One-page budget worksheet, which requires that the applicant list all of the different sources of income they have for the project and itemize all of the expenses for the project. No more than 3 pages to answer the narrative questions. And the narrative questions are broken up into 3 sections. So the first section is called the quality of the arts, product, process, or service. And this is where the applicant really needs to, again, answer the who, why, when, where, and what questions. And this is the part of the narrative where they also talk about the qualifications of the key arts personnel involved in the project they are proposing. The second section of the narrative, the questions address access to the arts. So the first question is, what is your target audience, or who is your target audience? It also asks you to tell us how you plan to reach your target audience. So what kind of marketing effort are you going to use for this project? And how it serves the broader community. So some projects have activities or events that are open to the general public, but not all of them do. But we do ask that the applicant spend a little bit of time telling us that how the project, if it isn't open to the general community, how does it serve the general community? Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the third section of the narrative, the questions in that section really address management. So if there are any items in the budget that really need to be explained, that's where you tell us or explain why those budget items are in your proposed budget, and how you came to reach your estimated figures. It's also where you talk about the qualifications of the people who are going to be implementing the project. Sometimes the arts personnel are the same as the management personnel, but not always. For example, I used earlier the example of the city of Sharon and their brown bag concert series. The artists involved in that are the musicians that they are contracting with for the concert series, but the management, it's actually a two-team management team. One person from the city of Sharon is involved in making sure the project is implemented well, and there's also a volunteer from the community who makes sure that the project is implemented well. So in that example, the city representative and the volunteer are the management team. And in that third section of the narrative, that's where you tell us what their qualifications are. There are some required attachments for this application. For instance, any arts personnel or management personnel that are included or mentioned in the application, we want to see resumes for. We also ask that organizations attach a copy of their 501c3 letter of determination or nonprofit designation letter from the IRS. If you've got a venue that you don't own or control, this is where you need to attach a letter of commitment from the venue saying, yes, we know this proposal is being sent to you. We've agreed to offer our venue on this date for this time. So that letter needs to be included. Beyond that, there are other opportunities for the applicant to upload support material. What this funding cannot be used for, again, how we define art projects is pretty broad, but this funding cannot be used for fundraisers. And some folks, have tried to think about arts projects or events in other terms, but and they've tried to get funding for what seems to be a fundraiser. And what I tell them is, if the main reason you're doing it is to raise funds for either the organization or a cause, it is a fundraiser, and so it is not eligible for funding. Capital improvements. Like brick and mortar projects, like if you, an individual artist may not use this funding to rebuild a studio space. We also don't want to see this funding going to purchase equipment beyond $500. So, for instance, we had a teacher apply for funding for an after-school photography club, and we said, well, you can apply for funding and you can purchase cameras, but you need to keep it under $500. So you can purchase as many cameras as you can within the $500 limit for equipment purchases, and that worked very well. Of course, alcohol and food cannot be funded through this grant program, and religious activities, lobbying, those kinds of activities may not be funded, but eligible expenses. So what you can use this money for, it can be spent on artist fees. So to actually pay an artist to do something for you. And again, talking artists in the broad sense, right? You can also use this to purchase supplies, like consumable supplies, or even non-consumable supplies, like art supplies. Again, equipment under $500. You can use it for marketing. So if you have an exhibit, a concert, a festival, whatever type of project you're receiving funding for and you need to market it, you can use this grant funding for that. You can also use this funding to rent a venue, rent a space, rent equipment. Lots of different opportunities here to spend this money. Again, if an applicant has questions, I always recommend giving us a call or sending us an email, and we can address the questions before the application is due. So
That's wonderful. And remind our audience that applications for this round of funding are due on
June 20th. So for the 2017-2018 project stream grant period, applications are due June 20th. Announcements of who is receiving awards will be made sometime between October and December of 2017. The grant period, so when projects can take place and when these dollars can be spent, is actually September 1st of 2017 through August 31st of 2018. So that's the grant period that we're talking about.
Okay, but for the period between September 1st and when the announcement is made that you've received the funding?
Yes. So the reason that seems a little odd, and we've got some folks who they may propose having a project start in October, but for one reason or another, we may need to delay the announcement of the grant awards. They may need to delay the start of their project. So these grants are funded through, again, state dollars. So it depends on whether or not the budgeting process happens within a timely manner, how long it takes the Pennsylvania Council of the Arts to process funds, and Erie Arts and Culture then to process funds. So all of that takes time, and sometimes we can make the announcements in October. This past year, we were able to make the announcements in November, which is not too bad.
Uh-huh.
But checks actually did not go out to grantees until January.
Could those checks be then, when you get the funding, could that be applied to something that's already happened if it's within the grant period?
Yes. So
Okay.
if an applicant comes in and says, our project is going to start in October, if we are able to make our announcements of who's receiving funding in October and they want to start in October, they can start in October, and then when the grant check is actually issued, let's say it's issued in January again, then they can use that funding to pay for the project expenses that have been incurred when they started the project in October. Again, it needs to happen within the grant period. So those funds cannot be used for any activity that occurs before September 1st. Right? But it can be. It's bizarre.
Yeah.
But again, we're working with. We are happy to be working with state dollars, but because we are working with state dollars, sometimes it means there are some complications with timing.
Right. But you would still be okay if you were applying. One would assume you would have another funding source just in case, but so you could actually start a project in September, even though you haven't been notified that you're one of the funders until October. And
you may not want to do that, but because you don't know if you're going to be receiving funding.
Right.
But you can.
Yeah.
You can.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And like I said, if you have alternate funding possibilities, then okay. Is there anything else you would like to add? We thank you so much for all of these insights.
Yeah, no, this has been a great opportunity. We really appreciate the opportunity to share information with the folks in Crawford County and continue to build relationships with the arts community in the region. So thank you.
That's great. Thank you. Crawford County appreciates your efforts on our behalf.